Well, it's really a sad moment when the President of the United States has to defend himself against France by saying that he didn't know what was going on. I mean, if he's telling the truth, I don't know which is worse. If he did know what was going on and still alienated the French, or he didn't know what was going on and made the decision. To me, it's probably worse that he didn't know what was going on. How can you have a commander-in-chief dealing with such a key issue with submarines in the area of China, dealing with Australia, and not telling the French, who had a prior agreement, not being aware that France somehow wasn't going to be aggravated by all this? So that, to me, was, he may have succeeded in defending himself, but he only did it by convincing the French that he didn't know what he was doing. So that's a very sad moment. As far as the meeting with the Pope, I still am waiting for the Vatican to confirm what President Biden said was told to him about abortion and taking communion. You notice that the Vatican, when they put out their version of what happened, they didn't mention that at all. If something like that was mentioned to President Biden, I doubt the Pope wanted him to make it public. And it just does not sound like the thing that a type of thing that a Pope would be saying to the president. First of all, he's saying he was a good Catholic. I don't know how you know who's good and who's bad. Generally, among Catholics, we're all sinners, so we don't say that I'm good and you're not good. It's really up for the God to decide. And as far as specifically saying that he could receive communion, the Pope must realize the implications of saying it in a way that Joe Biden could repeat it so casually. This is a deep theological and moral issue, and I doubt the Pope would have said it that directly. Now, maybe he did, but I think it's up to the Vatican to confirm or deny or clarify what was actually said between them.
Well, I think, again, we are sadly on a trust but verify premise here now with the president. Certainly many things that have come out of his mouth later turned out not to be true, starting with the promise to make sure every single American on the ground in Afghanistan got home safely before we went wheels up. I'm struck by the fact that absent from these discussions, China not present, Russia not present, and yet at a time when we should be working to build a new coalition of the willing to ensure that we can deal with the threat that China poses to the world, deal with the threat of Russian cyber attacks that have created havoc all across this country. We are on an apology and reparations tour, it appears, with countries that no longer seem to trust the word of that president, as you just pointed out.
Specifically when it comes to China, because the whole submarine arrangement with Australia that undercut France, which also is an essential part in that part of the world, an essential partner. So what he's done is he's weakened us against China by really dividing the allies. And then now he has to go over there and try to make amends to France, somehow bring them back into the fold. And he can only do that by admitting that he didn't know what he was doing. So to me, it's very, he's put it himself and more importantly, the country, I think, in a weakened position vis-a-vis China. As far as Russia, I really don't know, again, what the story is between President Biden and President Putin. All I know is that the arrangement where President Biden allowed Russia to extend their pipeline into Europe was one of, I think, the most grievous errors the president could make, especially at a time when we're facing a potential energy shortage. But again, I don't know. It's hard to figure out if there is a rhyme and reason to the president's policy when it comes to dealing with our allies and with our adversaries.
Absolutely. When you really break it down, we're in a true state of disarray, not being able to trust the words coming out of the president's mouth. Allies seemingly more concerned about trying to make sure America apologizes to them than deal with the looming threats on the global stage. Congressman King, as always, we appreciate you. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Joe, thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.